So to recap, the baby clothing you actually need to get are onesies and pants that have the hands and feet attached to them so they can cover them up, and the right sleep sack or sleep suit for your baby's age, and then some seasonal or outdoor wear. You don't need to get any of those scratch mitts or socks, and babies don't need to wear shoes. Hi, you're listening to Season 4 of the Baby Manual Podcast, the podcast that helps new parents all over the world navigate the everyday challenges that arise when you have a young baby. This season will help you decide which pregnancy, baby, and toddler items you actually need, and which ones are a waste of time and money. I'm pulling on the knowledge of hundreds of thousands of new parents around the world, other pediatricians, doctor moms, the Academy of Pediatrics, breaking pediatrics news sites, all to give you the best information and recommendations that I can, because I know how overwhelming it can be. I'm your host, a pediatrician, a mom, and an author, Dr. Carole Keim. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Baby Manual Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all about baby clothing and what clothing to buy, because I know that when I was first pregnant, the first thought that came to my mind is, I got to get some onesies and some tiny little socks. So let's talk about what you actually need to make sure that you have enough, but not too much of the right things. Also, just keep in mind, clothing is the number one thing that your friends are going to get you at your baby shower. So, take that with a grain of salt, but you probably don't need to buy as much clothing as you think. So to start off with, onesies. Onesies are amazing. I love the onesies that have short sleeves and just the 3 snaps in the crotch. The plain white ones is all you need. You could do colored ones, cute ones if you like. Keep in mind, you want these in newborn and 0 to 3 month while you're still pregnant, before your baby comes, because you don't know exactly how big they'll be. If you have a history of small babies in your family, or if you think your baby is, measuring small during the pregnancy, you might want to even have like a couple of preemie size onesies on hand. But your baby's just going to be going through several of these a day. They spit up all the time. They pee and poop all the time. It gets everywhere. So these are really just utility clothing. You just need a handful, at least. So I would say in terms of onesies, if you're buying them yourself, get yourself a few, 5 to 10. People will give you way more than that, I'm sure. And if you've already gotten some from friends or you already have some on hand, you probably don't need to get any more of these. You also, on top of those thin onesies, these work as a really good sort of underlayer. For babies to be a comfortable temperature, they should be wearing approximately what we are wearing as adults at room temperature, but with one extra layer. So if you think of these onesies as an undershirt, they're great for that layer. The other option is these sort of outerwear onesies, which are the ones with the long sleeves. So with those, I would say get ones that have long sleeves that the mitts of them will fold over. And you can, they act as scratch mitts, because the regular scratch mitts just don't stay on their hands. They fall off in a second. But if you get the sleeves that fold over, these long sleeve ones usually have feet attached also. So you want the footy ones, and you want ones that have a zipper that goes all the way from the neck down to 1 foot. And the zipper, the best ones are the ones that have a zipper that's a 2-way zipper. So you can unzip it from the top, or you can unzip it from the bottom, which is amazing for in the middle of the night. If you have to change a diaper, which happens, is going to happen. Sorry, if you're not ready yet. So this is really, really helpful because you can unzip from the leg. You don't have to take off the whole onesie, and you don't have to take them all the way out of it from the top either. Also, these onesies will pretty much always have something over the top that protects the top of the zipper. So it's just this little fold over piece of fabric, so that the zipper doesn't catch your baby's neck, and so that they don't, in case the zipper pull were to come off, that they wouldn't choke on it. We've got some recommendations in the show notes for all of these, but basically the Carter's onesies are the ones that I found that by default typically have all of these features. But yeah, we've got some links for you below so you can see what we're looking at. All right, and then in terms of separate pieces of clothing, so shirts and pants are not as helpful for newborns, but with some exceptions. So I like the kimono shirts in newborn size only. And those are the ones that kind of fold over, and there's a single snap on one side, and then you fold the other side over and there's a single snap on that side, on the waist. And these typically will have fold over sleeves as well. These are really good for basically as pajamas for your baby, because they should be swaddled for that first month or so until they're busting out of it. And we'll get to swaddles in a second. But the kimono shirt inside the swaddle is great because it keeps the top half of them warm, but you can still get to the diaper really easily. and they're going often at night. Like they're pottying really often at night for the first couple months of life. So it's really nice to have that feature there. After they're out of the swaddle age, they do better off in a sleep sack or a sleep suit. And in that case, you probably want a onesie inside. The shirts tend to ride up and they're moving around a lot in those, once they're out of swaddle age. And the shirts, they ride up on their bodies and they feel like they just, could kind of get around their neck and choke them and or get over their face and suffocate them. So they're almost more dangerous than helpful once they're out of the swaddle. After they're like a year old and walking around, it's nice to have shirts again. But up until that age, when they're basically laying all of the time, shirts are useless and just dangerous. Pants now, so pants can go over onesies, like those short sleeve onesies. You can do pants over that. If you're getting pants for your newborn, I would only get the ones that have the feet attached to them. And if you're thinking about getting socks, I would say forget about socks. Instead, get these pants with the feet attached. They're like tights, or just footed pants, and they just slip on. They'll stay on, which is nice, and they'll keep your baby's feet warm, so they won't get kicked off like socks do. But also, like, regular pants are just kind of useless. Like they're not really doing a lot. They're going over a diaper, so they don't need that extra layer of like warmth there. They often ride up on their legs. If they don't have the feet attached, they just like end up kind of scooching up like shorts. So their regular pants are basically useless, again, in the non-walking age. So yeah, I would say pants with the feet attached are great. Now, in terms of like foot and hand stuff, so babies' nails, when they're first born, they're weirdly like sharp, but also flimsy. They're really difficult to cut. They're really tiny and hard to see. And it's just terrifying to cut their little nails. And so a lot of babies and newborns, especially in the first like week or two of life, get little scratches all over their face. It's not dangerous. It's just a cosmetic thing. But gosh, I know I felt so bad for my babies when they did that. And I feel like a lot of moms do. And they're like, oh, I just wish they weren't scratching themselves. So we get these scratch mitts, right? Which are these little, they have elastic around the wrist. They look like mittens without a thumb. They're just like a solid thing. They fall off. First-time parents, I feel like, always have these, and we're like, yes, awesome. I love that you're prepared and thinking about this. But also, unfortunately, these just don't work. And then you see these more experienced parents in the hospital, and they've got baby socks over the baby's arms. And I'm like, okay, yes, you know that the scratch mitts are useless and that these will stay on better. But they're still not awesome. So the ones that really have a lot of experience or that work with babies a lot will come into the hospital with those onesies that have the fold-over hands, because those will stop your baby from scratching themselves on the face. They're very easy to use. So I would say forget about the scratch mitts, forget about the socks. Babies don't need shoes. It's actually really not good for them to have shoes until they're about 2 years old. It's really better for them to learn to walk in bare feet so that their feet get used to the ground. They can, sort of shape themselves as they grow and not get shaped to a shoe. If you want to get shoes for your baby as like sort of a dress-up accessory type of a thing, the ones in the newborn phase are called crib shoes. They're basically they don't really have soles on them. The sole is soft, so it's usually made of leather or fabric, and they would slip if they tried to walk in them. They're not made for walking. So those crib shoes are your little booties or whatever. They're cute. They don't really stay on, just like socks. So, if you need to get a pair for like a family photo or something, that's about all they're good for. They'll last for like a minute or two, and then they'll get kicked off. Slippers, on the other hand, we actually ended up using slippers a lot with my second one. And the ones that I recommend are, we had these fuzzy slippers. And so because they were fuzzy, they had a little grip to them. They were stretchy. They had some elastic, so you can like stretch them to put them on, and then they kind of grip when they get on around the ankle, which babies don't really have ankles, which is why things don't really stay on. But these were just grippy enough, but not tight. And we would put them on over a onesie with the feet. So it was like putting them over socks, except if you put them on their own or with socks, they would get kicked off in a second. But if you put them on over a onesie, they actually stayed on a little bit longer. So those we would use inside, then like maybe another layer when we were going out, or if he was in like the carrier or the wrap or something. So yeah, that's, I would say slippers might be helpful. We'll link the ones that we like in the show notes. In terms of sleepwear stuff, so for newborns, for the first month or so of life, they should be swaddled. Now you can swaddle them with a blanket. You can wrap it up sort of like a burrito. I have instructions in my book, The Baby Manual, about how to do that. But basically, it's definitely an option, but it's unfortunately nowadays not the best option anymore. So really what I think is the best is these sleep sacks that have, these swaddle sacks that have Velcro in them. So it's sort of like a U-shaped, I don't know, bottom, I guess, that you put their legs into. And then that part has Velcro. So that comes up like over their legs up to their chest. And there's Velcro on the front of it. And then you wrap the first side around and there's going to be like two sides, like two flaps sticking out behind their arms. You wrap the first side over that first arm and it tucks it in place. And then you wrap the second one over the other side and it tucks that in place and that Velcro's down. And so now your baby's arms are nice and swaddled, nice and tight. They can't really bust out of it very easily. Once they get bigger and stronger, they can bust out of it. So it's not going to prevent them, like developmentally at that stage, from getting out of their swaddle, but it'll keep them in it at the newborn phase. And it's very easy to use. You don't need any skill. It's fine if they're wiggling, they won't wiggle their way, like they won't loosen it as they're getting into it. So really nice and easy. I'll link those below. So again, like it's really funny to see in the hospital when parents come in with one of those. And I'm like, this is obviously not your first kid. You know what you're doing. I love seeing those. They're super, super helpful to have. So yeah, if you have one, bring it to the hospital. I'm going to do an episode later about travel essentials, but with that one, I'm going to say what you should have in your hospital go bag and also what to put in a diaper bag for when you're out and about. Okay, so after they're out of the swaddle newborn phase, they go through this phase from about age a month-ish to 4 to 6 months when they're rolling, where they're laying there on their back in bed and they don't quite have enough strength to stay in a position that makes them comfortable and they startle. And if they startle, they usually like start, it like wakes them up fully and then they get moving and they're kicking and they're happy and they're awake. And you're like, oh man, you were just asleep. So for that phase specifically, what I recommend is the Merlin Magic Sleep Suit. I absolutely love this thing. One of my friends gave me hers after her baby outgrew. She's like, you need this. You only need it for a short time. If you have a friend that has a baby that's a couple months older, then you ask if they have one, or if you can find it at a thrift store. But if not, get one. I'll link it. It's the best for these couple of months. It will save your sleep, your baby's sleep, and your sanity because it's just this like padded, it looks like a down coat, but it's not down. It's like a blanket, like a padded blanket, but the hands and feet are open. So it's kind of for all sizes and it just keeps them in this position like a starfish. And so you lay them on their back in that and they're in this safe starfish position all night. And if they startle, it's just like thick enough that they don't fully startle themselves awake, but it's not heavy. Just a quick side note, also going back to like the newborn swaddles, some companies have weights in the swaddles or in the sleep sacks or the sleep suits that are over the baby's body and they're meant to feel like a hand on the baby to help them sleep. These are not considered safe because the weight over the course of the night, it can be too much for your baby and they can stop breathing. So these are not considered safe. But the Merlin sleep suit is not heavy, so it's not weighted. So it's nice and safe. So it's like it has just enough thickness to it that it holds your baby in that position, but it doesn't it's not weighted on their chest. And so it doesn't make it harder for them to breathe. So it's very safe. I love this one. So yes, get one of those if your baby's in that age range. And then after that, so once your baby is able to roll over, the Merlin Magic Sleep Suit is not safe anymore. And at that point, they should be in a sleep sack. And with a sleep sack or a sleep suit, but I would say a sleep sack at this age because they're rolling, but they don't fully have control of their arms and legs. And so what happens is they roll over and their leg gets through one of the slats in the crib. And it's not like it's like stuck, like pinched in there, but it's like they can't figure out how to get it out because they accidentally rolled themselves in that position and they just don't know how to control their body enough to move away from that. So when they're in that phase, you want to use a sleep sack that covers their legs. And so it's like basically the top half of it looks like a onesie, like it's got sleeves, but the bottom half looks like a dress that zippers closed. And they can still roll around in them. They can still move in them, but their legs aren't going to get stuck through the slats. And their arms too, because they're, nice and slippery in those things. So my favorite sleep sack is linked in the show notes there. But what I would say to look for in a good sleep sack is, well, there's a lot of variety nowadays. So some have long sleeves, some have short sleeves. So depending on how warm or cold you like to keep the house at night, if you and your partner tend to sleep with blankets or not, if you tend to feel cold or feel hot when you sleep, that might influence the weight of the sleep sack that you choose and whether it's got sleeves or not. But I'd say take those into account. It should have a zipper that goes from the neck down all the way to the bottom. Again, the best ones have a zipper that goes two ways. So it can unzip from the bottom, so you can just get the diaper out at bed or at nighttime and change it, or one that unzips from the top so you can change the whole outfit. They should have a little flap that covers the top of the zipper. But my favorite sleep suit that I'm linking below is the Kaya baby sleep suit. It has also a little temperature gauge inside. And so you can actually open up and see like how comfortable your baby is and whether they feel too hot or not. So that's really cool. And it has camel wool inside, which is sustainable and warm and breathable. I would say also, yeah, definitely look for a fabric that the sleep sack is basically like a wearable blanket for your baby. So if you pick it up and you're like, oh, this feels like a nice blanket that I'd like to sleep under, then that's a good one, right? And so, yeah, anyways, I would say find one that feels good. I'm going to link my favorite one that I think feels like that. In terms of blankets, so babies cannot use blankets until they are at least a year old. And at that point, after a year, it's okay for them to sleep with a blanket, but they still can't have a pillow until they're 2 years old in the crib or in their toddler bed, I guess, after that age. So no blankets until age 1, no pillows until age 2. Now, there are baby blankets that are sold, and I will recommend them later when we get to the episode that's on furniture and linens, but not for sleeping. So baby blankets are great for like throwing on the ground for playing. Like if you're outside in a park and, you're say you don't want them on the grass, but you just want to like let them play on the ground. It's good for that. It's good for laying over those changing stations that are in bathrooms. Or if you can't find one, to put over your lap or a chair to change your baby in public or in the car or whatever. But yeah, blankets are not safe for babies. So you're not going to need to be buying any blankets for your baby to sleep with at least. And the same goes for those sweet little like snuggle toys that are like, little stuffed animal that has like a blanket attached to it. They're really cute, really sweet. They look like something like, you're like, oh, it'd be so adorable to see my baby snuggling that. Unfortunately, those are not safe. Remember, for safe sleep, there should be nothing in the crib or bassinet with your baby other than a pacifier. They're allowed to have a pacifier, and that's it. So no blankets. They're allowed to be swaddled, so like a swaddle or sleep suit or sleep sack or wearable blanket alternative is what they're allowed to have. They're not allowed to have an actual blanket in there. No stuffed animals, no bumpers in the cribs, none of those like, I don't know, screen things they used to put on cribs. Those are all considered unsafe. All right. So for outerwear stuff, it's kind of my last category of things. If it is cold when your baby is born, you're going to want a warm hat. And actually, even if it's not cold, you're going to want a hat for warmth. So if it's, say late spring or summertime when your baby's born, those thin cotton hats that are kind of the same thickness as onesies, and they usually come as like part of that onesie set. Those ones are great for during, spring and summer babies to wear as like that extra warmth. Because babies do lose a lot of heat through their head, especially in that first month of life when they're still not good at thermoregulating. And I mean, really the first year, they're getting better all the time. But that first month or so, you really should put a hat on them most of the time. In the winter, I would say you want ideally like a knit or crochet hat for your baby to wear. And babies' heads grow ridiculously fast. So you're going to need a bunch of sizes of hats. So you want a hat in a lot of sizes from, like say this big around to like a orange circumference to like maybe a grapefruit or a little larger circumference around. That should get you through at least those first couple of months when they're wearing hats. But yeah, so winter hats, the knit and crochet ones are nice because they're stretchy and they can fit, for a little bit longer and they're really warm. You don't need a jacket for your baby. Babies should not have anything padded on their body when you put them in a car seat. It is not safe. It creates this like floofy layer that you can't tighten the seatbelt down enough, but it's not tight enough to hold them in the event of a crash. So nothing padded on the baby in the wintertime in the car seat. So I'd say you're not going to need a jacket or one of those like puffy onesies unless you're planning on taking your baby out, not in the car. So, if you're planning on wearing them in a carrier that goes outside of a jacket, that might be a reason to get one of those. Or pushing them around in a stroller outside, or doing a lot of commuting that involves outside time, then that might be worth it. But you're going to have to take it off every time they get into their car seat if you're going in the car. So I'd say, you might want a warm thing if you live in a place that you drive most places. If you're walking most places, you might want a handful of these. In terms of like leg warmers. So I have leg warmers on this list as an outerwear thing, but also it's a good alternative to pants. So leg warmers are they're kind of helpful when it's cold or when it's like cold in the house and your baby's kind of roaming around, or you just want an extra layer, but they have a onesie that doesn't have legs on it. Or maybe it has legs and you want an extra layer on their legs. Leg warmers are sometimes helpful. Yeah, I don't really know if it's not like a widely sold thing, but I felt like the leg warmers that were handmade were one of my favorite things that I had for my babies. It's just because they're, they add that little bit of warmth. But if you have a family friend that knits or crochets and they want to make your baby socks, tell them to make leg warmers instead. And they'll probably be like even more excited to make those because socks are tricky, that you have to turn the heel and you have to close the toe and they don't stay on. And leg warmers do stay on and they're easier to make. So and they look really adorable and they can help keep their legs warm. So yeah, they can be useful. So I'd say, if you have a friend that makes them, if you don't have any friends that knit or crochet, you don't necessarily have to go out and get leg warmers for your baby. It's just, in terms of other sort of two random miscellaneous things, a swim diaper. So a swim diaper is good for if it's summer or if you go swimming a lot. Babies can go swimming really as early as 3 months of age. Talk to your pediatrician before taking your baby into a pool ever. And not that they can go swimming like you can put them in the water. Like you can walk into the water holding your baby from about age 3 months of age. But definitely talk to your doctor first and get the go ahead. And so a swim diaper is nice because it's something that they can wear into the pool. Like a regular diaper soaks up all moisture, all water. And so it'll just soak up all the water and get heavy and then fall off when you get out of the water. And also not hold any pee or poop. Like it becomes useless because it's saturated. So what a swim diaper does is it's really just mesh and it catches poop. So it catches all baby poops, even that like weirdly squishy newborn poop will get caught in it. It does not catch pee. So if you have your baby in a swim diaper and you're holding them on your lap and they pee, it's going to go straight through it and you're going to get wet. If they poop, the liquid part of the poop is also going to go through it and you're going to get wet. So swim diapers are really only good while you're in the water for catching poop only. And then once you get out of the water, you take them back out of it, put them in a regular diaper. So yeah, you might want to have a swim diaper if you think like you might go in a pool with your baby. And then a hooded bath towel. My husband made me put this one on the list. So he said, make sure you tell them about the hooded bath towel because that was so handy and something I didn't think we would actually need. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. So you do need a towel for your baby after the bath. But what we like about the hooded one, it's really just like a square towel with one corner folded over into a hood. So you put that corner over their head and then it makes a nice like diamond shape and you can easily like wrap the sides over their arms and wrap the feet up in it. And it's just a very quick, like a 1, 2, 3. As soon as they're out of the tub, they're instantly swaddled up and warm. And then you can carry them into the bedroom and change them after that. But hooded bath towels are actually really nice to have. And I wasn't sure where to put these. And so I just put them in with newborn clothing stuff. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Baby Manual podcast. And I hope this was helpful for you. I would love to hear if you have any feedback. I'm going to put my email in the show notes as well. So you can send me an email if you have any feedback. If there's anything that you're like, oh, you forgot this, I would love to hear about it. Also, any requests for future episodes, I'd love to hear about that too. I am not able to answer any medical questions by email. So unfortunately, if you do reach out with a question of this is going on with my baby. How can I help? Or can you help me decide what to do? I am not able to help with that by email, unfortunately. But other, podcast related things I absolutely can help with. So I look forward to hearing from you. I hope that this was helpful. Share it with a friend. Next week, we're going to talk about the big baby items. So now that we've gotten over the really fun, exciting things to buy, we're going to talk about what are the big pieces of furniture that you need? What do you need to make space in your house for? How to get your nursery ready, that kind of thing. So to recap, the baby clothing you actually need to get are onesies and pants that have the hands and feet attached to them so they can cover them up, and the right sleep sack or sleep suit for your baby's age, and then some seasonal or outdoor wear. You don't need to get any of those scratch mitts or socks, and babies don't need to wear shoes. Thanks for listening. Remember, all of the links from this episode are in the show notes, and you can always go to my link tree, which is linktr.ee/drkeim. If you know anybody who is pregnant or has a little baby, tell them about this show. Maybe they would like to listen to this podcast. They might find something helpful in here. And if you know any friends who are pregnant and want to get them something for their baby shower, I would definitely recommend my book, The Baby Manual. It's meant to be all-inclusive. Really, all the questions that arise in the first year of your baby's life are in that book. So Baby Manual is also linked in the show notes and on my link tree. Have a wonderful day.